Hello. I've just got to test this darn thing. It's not easy, but I did it once. I have to go into YouTube Live and follow my own stream, which is pain, but managed it fairly quickly, even though I wasn't sure how. So just got to find out recent live streams, live now. Let's find where I am. I should be on there somewhere. If my mic's not working, it won't be much use, will it? No. Nobody watches me on the live ones anyway. I need to get through directly, but I can do it straight from my computer now. Right, let's just see where I am. It's worth losing a minute at the beginning just so I know that it's possible. There we go, I found it. Let's listen. I found it now. I know how to do it. Found it. Great. Let's listen. I found it now. I know how to do it. Found it. Great. Let's listen. You get echoes there. Echoes and echoes. Right, so my microphone is now behaving itself. Go. Right, so not good. There we go. Right, we're up to say 1988, because that was the year that I bought my first flat. Because I couldn't afford London, I got a flat in Oxford because there were loads of places to teach in Oxford, and I've been teaching law ever since I got my law degree in '84. Pardonnez-moi. Oh, pussy's come to help me. Anyway, funny thing about Oxford was that even though it had more colleges and tutorials than anywhere else, none of them needed me. Both the students used to help them in their spare time, so I signed up with a very good employment agency who found me a job almost straight away the next day, and I had to shoot up and get to Oxford overnight to start my job, which was supposed to be for about 2 weeks for temp agency while somebody was on holiday. So I was there for 2 weeks. The woman came back from holiday and they kept me on. Soon afterwards she left, so I was brought on as permanent staff. In the meantime, I had another job from the agency offered, plus another job I'd applied for at Oxford Council doing the poll tax as it was then. And of course I didn't need either of them because I had a job. And I was there for 2.5 months before the company moved to the other side of Britain and made us all redundant. Funny thing was that I was going to London at the weekend teaching privately, and the school that I was teaching in had lost their law teacher and offered me the job there. So I was able to move back to London and use the money I was earning there to buy a flat in London, which I turned over rather quickly, but used to get to college once a week on the other side of London. Then I bought, trying to remember if I missed out any in between. I don't think I did. No, I think I bought a house in '92 from a flat. So I moved up from a flat to a house. Then my father retired, and because most of the people in Richmond and Kingston I knew had moved away, and I was living between the two, I got a bit fed up there. Plus I blew up the television by watering a plant on it. Never do that again. So my father, who had retired, said, well, I don't need to live North London, I can live anywhere. Well, I'll move into your house. So he was there for the rest of his life, for 29 years or so. It was very good. No, 29 years ago we bought it. So he was there for 26 years. So that was the story of my father's house, and I moved up to North London, found a place that was big, in the middle of nowhere. I got bored there and moved here to a few blocks away from where I was till I was 5 years old, because my cousin had one of these. It was just like being at home. He was on the other side of the block, and I thought, right, go over there, nice and cheap. I've been here ever since 1995. So house was pulled down a few years ago because it was sinking. Only the outside walls remain. It's still being rebuilt. That's why it looks a bit of a state. Long story. No insurance. I mean, I was insured. They just refused to accept the claim, which, looking back on it, I can quite understand the sort of system that they run. You can't claim when houses are sinking because they've excluded every single cause of it except the ones that are very unlikely to happen. Anyway, so there you are. So I got the first flat. I got the job. When I came back to London, I was teaching for a few years, and then in 1991, I qualified as a counsellor. Pardonnez-moi. And at the same time, left the job because the kids were acting up so much. I thought, well, I've been teaching the same stuff twice a week for 2 years, 'cause it's 2 different classes, upper and lower sixth. So I was repeating the same material every bloody week, over and over again. This is my 6th year teaching in school, and I think I'd had enough of it because the kids were all climbing the tables, and because they were over 16, we couldn't discipline them because they were all voluntary students who weren't there because they had to be and they were paying. So all I could do was call the headmaster. I was really in trouble, which is the bloke next door to me called the headmaster, saved me the trouble. Came in and says, "Why is there no teacher in the room? He was from Northern Ireland. I can't do a Northern Ireland. Why is there no teacher in the room? Oh, you are there. Sorry, Mr. Howard." So let's get the headmaster up. So he said, "I hear you've been making a very hard time for Mr. Howard. I'm going to sit in on this class and make sure you behave and don't do it again." "Sorry, sir. Sorry, sir." He's a lovely bloke. He was 6'7". And he was one of the most kindest, gentlest people you'll come across, our headmaster. And he used to have a party in his house like every year or two, schoolhouse. Not every year or two, once or twice a year, when some of the teachers will go there and get drunk because he had the house next to the school as part of his job. So that was the job when I thought I was qualified, and get another job quite easily, thinking of the 80s when I could walk out of a job on Friday and literally walk in a new one on Monday, which doesn't happen in the 90s. So I ended up being unemployed for a year. My friend who had a sports shop offered me a job there. So I was there for the next 5 years, suited me fine. Carried on doing my counselling at home and bits of studying, extra courses, and it worked very nicely till he didn't need me anymore. But, you know, it did a very useful job. Now, that friend was the only person really who included me in their family when they got married. Most of my friends, apart from 2 of them really, when they got girlfriends, disappeared off the face of the earth. And then if they got married, they just mixed with other married people. You saw them about once or twice a year. But one friend who I met 1972 when I sat next to him at school, new school, became my friend. And apart from a few years in between when he wasn't speaking to me because one of our mutual friends had lied about me and got me into trouble, and another mutual friend got us out of trouble some years later. So back in 79, 80, I was back with him and used to go there every week, worked for him, and went there to watch the cricket and the football and play tennis in his tennis court. And he was a repairman for sports equipment for a while. I'd drive around with him all over the south of England in his little van, wandering about, having fun, taking little films on his video camera. And one day in 2001, he said, "My daughter is going to a tennis academy in Florida, so we're going there." It's like that. So within about 2 months, they'd gone off to Florida. I was part of 4 generations because it's 4 generations or 3 generations. The parents lived there, father had died, mother was there. The son and his wife and 2 children had moved out and moved back to look after the mother and bought the house jointly with the mother. So 3 generations and 2 cats were under the same roof, and I was part of the family, always part of the family. And we spent 3 days there virtually solidly for 3 days before they left. We had an early birthday party for his daughter. We had a New Year's party, which was very interesting because my father rang me up as I was on the way there, and he says, "Where are you going tonight?" I said, "Peters for the New Year," because we used to take it in turns, alternate years, to have the New Year's party. And "Oh, well, your grandma's a bit bored," he said, because a lot of the time we go round to her house for New Year's. So either he or I said, "Well, I'm sure she can come to the Peters' house for New Year's Eve." So my dad said, "Oh, I'll ring her up. That's a very good idea." She said, "Oh, I'm so delighted." So my grandma was about 10 years younger than Peter's mother, so they had a lot in common. There's probably about 20 people there. It was all on film. Quite a few of my friends were there because we all knew each other. Peter's friends and his mother and the neighbour and my grandma and my father. We had a great time. It's all on film. Then the next day we went back, and what what his wife did is she made sandwiches, plates of sandwiches, took all the food left over from New Year's Eve, and then did a party for her daughter's birthday, which was in 3 weeks' time, for all her friends down here. So what happened was she had her children's party lunchtime, and then at 4 o'clock or something, when it had finished, 4 or 5 of us turned up for our adults party. So we had the adults party all on film, played Scrabble, spent the evening there, and had all the leftover food. So it was a great time. So it was a lovely 2 days of my life. I've seen them twice since then when they come back from Florida, and that was now 19 years ago, and they packed up everything and moved over there for good. So I had to get my life together after that. 1996, I think it was, when I had a friend in, where did he live at the time? Collindale. We were just coming to my house, and he said to me, "Oh, can we just stop off at a friend?" So we stopped off at his friend, and I was parked outside their house, and friend was a nice-looking woman, and as she walked out the house, she was yelling to her parents in Arabic, arguing with them, then came to my house. And she wasn't very talkative. She's very attractive and nice and quiet. And a couple of months later, or a month later, I don't know how long it was, I said, "Oh, you can give her my phone number. It'd be nice to see her again." So I did. And we spoke on the phone a few times. I invited her over. Anyway, yeah, it must be about 2 months later. So she rang me up and arranged to come over. Somebody else walked in the door. I said, "That's funny. You're not," quote name. "Oh, she's behind me. I'm her sister." "Oh, yeah." And I won't say too much about her sister because she'll be watching this, won't you? Yes, but anyway, sister number one, who I knew had a twin sister who was abroad and had come back to London, and said I should go out with her. So for a while we did, and that was one of my. Well, it didn't end as, as I wanted it to. I'll put it this way. She'll know that as well. We're good friends now, and I'm glad I met them. I'm good friends with both of them now. So sometimes you can meet women, and whatever's meant to happen happens. If it's going to be a relationship, it'll be a relationship. If it isn't, it'll either be short and fun, and then you get bored with each other, or you argue with each other, never see each other again, or become friends. So anyway, they have become friends, and I do see the one in London from time to time, the one in America from time to time when she comes over here. So we've all grown from the same roots, because the thing was, when I was dating, one of the usual dates I would do is take my girlfriends to my friend Peter's in Golders Green, and we'd spend the evening there, and the ladies would sit in the kitchen just like in Victorian times, gossiping about us, no doubt, and about the mess we leave in the house and everything else, because that's what they like to do. And we would go to the pool room and play pool while they chatted. Then we come back and have tea together and play Scrabble. And everyone came into the shop, and many of them got to know Peter, who would come back and play tennis and Scrabble and pool in the evening. So we'd always have one or two other people. And Solly, who is watching this, no doubt, used to come over with his brother and his dog, and we'd have a good time over there with Peter, making fart jokes. And one of the funniest stories ever, I always say they're toilet related, was when Peter's washing machine broke down. So this Indian, of course it has to be an Indian, so I can do the accent, this Indian engineer comes along. It was a very heavy washing machine, had to be wheeled out of the kitchen. Anyway, 3 of us were wheeling it out into the hall, and Peter let off one of his standard ones, which smelled like a broken sewage pipe. And the Indian bloke was pushing, "Oh, what is that smell? I don't know." He said, "Oh, yes, there is." The bloke said, "Oh, it must be the drains." And Peter and I were cracking up. All the drains were leaking. Yes, and of course it was something more temporary than that. So we never forgot that. So, it does happen. So that was our little family in Golders Green that ended very abruptly in January 2002, never to be seen again, except when they visited twice since then. They haven't been back now for 12 years, long time. So my studying went from pleasure, well, from business to pleasure in 1991 when I finally finished attending college. It was a long, drawn-out part-time course when I finished. And I said, right, what am I going to study for pleasure now? Psychic development. So I found a psychic group in Streatham, of all places, but luckily it began at 7 and all the traffic was going north and I was going south, so I never got any traffic. So I often got there half an hour early, sat outside listening to Harry Hill's Fruit Corner. You've got to have a system. Cool! That was on the radio from 6:30 to 7 every Wednesday. So I became a great Harry Hill fan. And 20 years later, about 20 years later, my grandma got a letter through her door saying, please be careful parking your cars because Harry Hill will be filming opposite for 3 days. So the second day, because I was busy the first day, I went out with my grandma. She sat down on the bench on the green and I went up to Harry Hill. There's my grandma over there. She's 96 and she's having a heart operation tomorrow. Here's my autograph book. And he flipped through all the autograph books. He was directing a film on the green. And he says, oh, come in and watch the film. So I got on the set and this little woman in a uniform says, oh, you can't go on the set, and escorted me off. It was very nice. And John Thompson from the Fast Show was there talking to his son, watching the performance. And I said, oh, you've got your studio audience here. And he gave me the dirtiest look I've ever had. That was nice, wasn't it? Nice bloke. Whereas Harry Hill was lovely. And he said, oh, come back tomorrow. So I came back the next day and spent some of the afternoon with him. He was such a nice bloke, Harry Hill. And the weird thing was I had my camera, but I couldn't get close enough to take a picture of him because he was in a little black box with the camera in it. And, you know, like the old Victorian ones, you couldn't see him because he had this big black curtain around him. When I was talking to him, I was busy showing him my autograph book and getting his autograph. But that was a nice experience to spend a couple of days getting to know somebody, because I'd actually gone to see him live a few years earlier and it was cancelled. And I said to him, and he said, oh, I'm very sorry, somebody died. I said, well, that's a good reason. But I said, we've made up for it because I've seen most of your sketches on television, but now I'm actually getting to know you as a person. And, you know, many people have seen you on stage, but very few people have actually come and got to know you. So I made up for it. Now, the other one that I was really into was Big Brother, because when it was announced the year before it came on, I thought, that's amazing, just watching people being normal. So I was hooked on that from day one. And year 3, 2003, I think it was, or 2004, doesn't matter. I was at my grandma's on Friday night, as always, Big Brother final. I said, hang on a minute, it's 2 miles away from your house, 3 miles away. So 11 o'clock, I got in the car, drove up to Elstree Studios, and it turns out that they had this marquee on the main road with just a grass lawn in between it, with a big plastic window in front of it, and you could see all of them out from the street. So I watched them all. Some of them were coming and going and walking in the garden. So I saw the class of 2004, I think it was, and rang up LBC and spent 10 or 15 minutes on Clive Bull telling him what was going on. So I became their Big Brother correspondent after that. So whenever it was on, I'd ring up regularly and give them reports. So the next year, of course, I went there planned, and I got there a bit later. I assumed I'd be there on time compared to the previous year, but they'd already got going about half an hour before I started, and turned out that the members were going up to the 20 or so crowd in the street and saying hello to them. A couple of them had already gone, but one of them came out. I said, oh, can you go in there and bring out everyone else? So she did, and there was a stream of Big Brother contestants coming out into the garden. And then they finished the interview with the winner in the second place, Nadia and Jason, because they'd been interviewed in the studio at the back, and they'd just come out being filmed by Channel 4, and they walked up to us because presumably Kitten, who was the one that I asked to go in and get the others, had told everybody. And the runner-up, Nadia, came about halfway up and broke off and went into the party. And Jason and Daniel, that's right, Jason and Daniel, the big bald bloke, came up to us together and had a nice chat with us, filmed by Channel 4. So I said to Jason, I voted for you 5 times. He says, oh, thanks very much. It's nice to be wanted. So, that 5 days later, they had the winners program, which they do every year on Big Brother. So it's the finals night, but what happens outside the studio, what happens after the program. So I was watching it, and it was about halfway through, and suddenly when Jason and Nadia were being interviewed and they walked out, says, oh, that's when I saw them. And they saw Jason walking up the grass, coming up to me, shaking my hand and saying, it's nice to be wanted. And I went to the gym a couple of hours later, and they all ran up to me, all the staff and all the customers. You were on Big Brother, you were on TV. I was in it for 5.5 seconds, because the funny thing was, I didn't even say anything because they edited the conversation. So they showed me shaking. That's right. They showed me shaking his hand after I'd said that I'd voted for him 5 times. And he said, yes, thank you. It's nice to be wanted. But they didn't hear why he'd said it, because I just said I voted for you 5 times. But it was amazing to be on proper television for that 3rd time in my life. Well, 4th time, that's right. I didn't speak in any of them. The first one I was interviewed and dried up, so they showed me, but didn't show me speaking. The second time I was in a studio audience about football. It's basically talking about football on TV, and I was bored stiff, but it was nice to be on television. So they saw me in the audience, panning around the audience, but with my friend. And the 3rd time I was standing in for somebody in a real program who couldn't ride a motorbike, and I could. So I was the motorbike rider, being him with a helmet on, so you couldn't see who I was. Unfortunately, I had borrowed my friend's motorbike. I can't remember why I had, because I had one of my own. There must have been a reason for it. Maybe it was being repaired. Anyway, I had to borrow this bloody motorbike. Middle of Shaftesbury Avenue, halfway through the filming, it broke down because he put in a 250 engine on a 150 motorbike, and there wasn't enough petrol getting through. Didn't know that at the time. Anyway, where did I break down? Well, the whole film was done in Soho, about 7:30 at night. Did a nice big block, and we drove up Shaftesbury Avenue. I was coming in for the close-up, came right up to me. It's been 1978. Bike broke down. So I think he actually got the close-up before it broke down. And I couldn't go on any further. I had to leave the bike there and go home by train. And his brother or somebody took him the next day, because I think it was his brother's motorbike. It used to be his brother's motorbike. So anyway, I was in that. But the other thing that we did was extra work. I haven't done much of that, but what we simply did, it wasn't even when they clear the shops out, we deliberately went into a record shop in Soho, Old Compton Street, to do another scene where I was myself, because what they'd done is that they needed another scene in a record shop where a boy and a girl were chatting about the records. So we were just told to look at the records and talk among ourselves, and we did, but they didn't show it, which was a shame. So I didn't talk in that one either. But they did see me riding the motorbike up the road, and nobody knew it was me except the people that knew it was me. So that was my other one. However, with satellite, there are lots and lots of other channels, and that meant that 2001, I started voluntarily working for Nick Pope, the UFO man, who's now in America and does UFOs in the media 24/7, because he's the most in-demand expert on UFOs now, I think. He's in every single program. And the weird thing was that when I first saw him on the TV, I thought, oh, that's Nick Pope from the pub. Because it turns out that his family used to go on holiday in the same place we did. And he was about 7 or 8 years old, and they used to sit in the pub together, and Nick and his brother would be drinking orange juice, and we'd be drinking our beer, because he was about 7 or 8 years younger than me. And after a couple of years, he stopped going because he didn't really like it. His brother carried on till late 80s, I think. We were good friends, and we used to sing duets. We would sing, and I would play the piano, and because it was a music summer school, so everybody performed. So we'd work out all these little songs, like the Chicken Song, and play them. And then Friday night, mainly for the sort of parties and events, we'd all sit round a piano and sing and play the guitar together. And then I used to go around there, and we'd go and go to the pubs on Wimbledon Common where they lived. So it was a nice time. So anyway, I knew Nick Pope. I certainly knew his family, and qualified as a hypnotherapist and did all the UFO research. So I called him up and said, would you like a hypnotherapist for all your people in UFO magazine who want to be regressed? Oh my goodness, that's marvellous, because they were paying for somebody till then. I did it as part of my research. So the only thing I would like in return is to get on the telly. No problem at all. Got me loads of auditions, and my friend Malcolm Robinson, because the London UFO community is very tight and very small. If you go to 2 events, you'll probably meet everybody. Because UFO magazine and the related things, Lionel Beer sold his books. So you would regularly go to his house because that's where he sold his books from. He was the old school right from the beginning. Roy Lake was East London. Chris Martin, hello Chris, hope you're watching. Did a lovely convention with him where we had about a 2-hour discussion, and he had the best UFO footage that I've seen, even to this day. And I met a couple of people there and took them home and got to know them. We had a UFO watch afterwards. We lay on the grass and looked upwards, and I saw a shooting star which went like that, and it left a tail for about a minute. Lovely streak in the air right at the top. So we didn't see any UFOs, but I saw some very good shooting stars. So Malcolm Robinson, as I say, I can't remember how I got to know him, but he was only around the corner from me, and he invited me over, and we did quite a bit of psychic work together before we moved south and carried on his work there. But, you know, I've been introduced to all these guys, and the thing is, if you listen to Howard Hughes on Sunday night on Talk Radio, you'll hear Malcolm Robinson and Nick Pope and all the others on the radio, all the guys that I used to work with. So Nick got me, in the end, 4 TV programs on Sky. Just trying to work how many. Yeah, they all came here to my house and filmed 2 of them with 2 days running. One of them we went to the park, which was very nice. It was in the middle of summer and there's too much noise here, so they went to the middle of the park so they didn't get so much noise and it wasn't so hot. So I did all those, and the one I didn't get, because obviously you normally get about 4 to 5 inquiries before you can get an audition, and a lot of them, where you do get an audition, they never actually film them, so you get quite a lot of leads before you get it. Malcolm got me one of them, I think, so I mentioned his name. And the one that I slipped up on, you know, these happened to all of us. Another story where it did happen, but it was my choice. Was his name Ryder from the Sean Ryder from the Happy Mondays is fascinated by UFOs, and he was doing a whole series, Sean Ryder's UFO abduction or something, and they narrowed down the hypnosis team to 2 people. Now he was in Manchester, so I thought, why on earth are they interviewing me, because I'm in London? But who wants to come to London and do it? I'll do it. So the bloke came to my house, and I did my audition and interview, and in the end the bloke from Manchester got it, which is more practical. But I think had I been on TV with Sean Ryder, I would have been quite well known for it, because the ones I have done were shown on very sort of quiet programs like Discovery Science and everything, which are seen by like 10 or 20,000 people in Britain, but all over the world. So loads of people in America saw it. Of course, I'm not in America, so, you know, unless they saw me for 2 minutes or something in those programs, they wouldn't recognise me. But if I was in Britain on Sky with Sean Ryder, I think people would recognise me. Never mind, the other thing I didn't do was to accept a musical offer with the Toyah Band for 2 very good reasons, or 3 very good reasons, in fact, because my neighbour's brother, who was also my neighbour by coincidence, was a professional guitarist, and he used to practice up in a loft, and we'd hear him days on end. The funny thing was that before we moved there, we had a drummer in the road, and we'd hear him practicing for days on end. Don't know what happened to him. And anyway, he joined Toyah's band before she was famous in 1978. And he needed a pianist, keyboard player. So his brother said, oh, ask David. So they came from behind the garden. This woman with green and yellow hair, which was exactly the same colour as our old Budgie, came round. She was the singer, and Joel was, of course, the guitarist. I expect he brought his guitar and amp with him, because otherwise we couldn't really have had the audition. So my mum made tea for all of us and said, "Oh, she's a very nice girl. Look at that. Won't forget that hair, will you?" Anyway, so they gave me a little piece with the, because I don't like reading music. I can read it, just about, but not very well. Certainly not fast enough to play it or by sight. So what I do is I do three things: melody. So if I know the melody beforehand, I'll memorize it. I learn the chords through a piece of paper or through, a list, and the rest of it is improvised with them. So they said, "We're going to improvise around these chords." So fine. Ty started singing, and he was playing his guitar, and I was playing along the right chords that they asked me to. "Oh, you've done very well. You can join the band. Let me think about it." Of course, they weren't famous. Had they been famous, I think I would have said yes immediately, because, start at the top, you've done all the hard work. But of course, they were just a band. I didn't know what was going to happen. So I was bang in the middle of my A-levels with a degree to follow. And I said, "Well, the trouble is, Joel, is that I don't do anything by halves. If I was to join your band, I would not be able to continue with my A-levels for now, because I would be rehearsing and playing and hopefully recording if it goes well, and I wouldn't want to do half a job for you. I'd always want to be available at the drop of a hat for the music, and I would have to give up my A-levels. So what I would do is I can always play music. Well, middle of school, middle of my upper sixth form, got to get the A-levels out of the way, but thank you for the offer." Of course, 2-3 years later, they're on the bloody TV on Top of the Pops. They've probably still been going with Toya posts loads of pictures on Instagram with the band and Joel, who looked about 14. He was probably about 18 or 19. He's like me, he looked a lot younger than he was. Half the time not wearing a shirt with his big guitar. And I said, that could have been me in that picture. Never mind. I had my academic things to get on with, and I did get on with them. So, sometimes in life you have to make a decision. So it was Toya's 60th birthday. She was on Johnny Walker, and I sent a letter to them. She didn't hear it because he read it out before she came on, and so she didn't hear him read it out when she was actually in the studio, telling the story how sorry I was I didn't go in the band, but I had to do my A-levels and got my degree and diplomas afterwards. So Johnny Walker read it out, said, "Oh, you did the right thing. Got to do your education first." So, you get the approval of Johnny Walker, I think Toya will forgive me. So, a few times on Instagram, I said, if you want me back, I'm always coming back. I've got all the time in the world now, because she's still very busy. What she's done recently is fantastic. Not only has she produced vinyl records, but she's produced them all in different colours. So you can buy any colour you want. I used to love the vinyl records, the red, yellow, blue and green ones for the kids where they spun it round. She probably thinks I'm a pain in the arse. Always that bugger that wouldn't go in my band. Don't disrespect me, etc. Never mind. You win some, you lose some. So that was my brush with the media. Of course, I still hope to be doing a lot more media. I'm still here, still available, anybody. And results of my notes here, because otherwise I'm not going to flow in the right route. Yes, my psychic research. My friend upstairs where I was working was into enlightenment, which I didn't know anything about. I knew about psychic stuff, but not enlightenment. He used to go to all these lectures, and two ones that appealed to me were the enlightenment ones and the meditation ones. Meditation one needed regular classes every week for months and months and months. And then you would go and learn the technique once you had passed the course. Went for an evening's assessment in Kensington, where they would ask you questions to make sure you understood the work properly before you could go to Brighton and learn, as it was in my year. So I did that, and proved to me that you don't need drugs, there are states you can access of awareness that you can't do without meditation, unless you're very lucky. But if you're going to find them, you find them through meditation. Don't do drugs, because you'll hurt yourself and it gets worse. However good it is the first time, it shrinks, whereas the meditation gets better each time, if you're lucky. more random, but good for you. So I learned the meditation, and then threw myself into the psychic research, basically. Went to Uri Geller because he was performing locally a couple of years running, got to know him because unlike many of them, firstly, he performs in the audience so that you can see he's not cheating. So he got a spoon and hung it downwards, big heavy spoon because nobody brought any. I asked them to, I can't remember what I did, but big heavy spoon from the restaurant where we were. And he held it downwards and rubbed it like that, and it went bent like that. And a woman in the audience said, "Oh, my keys had just bent," and they had a hammer for that. So she had this huge heavy key, and it had bent. She couldn't have done it with her hands, and he had to come out with a hammer to bang it straight. She couldn't get home otherwise. And at the end of each show, he meets the audience. So he sits at a table, and we queue up. And I must have been very quick because I got to see him straight away the first time. And I said, "Why do you feel guilty for killing somebody in the war who was going to kill you?" Because he said it still bothers him. I said, "You do understand the defense of self-defense, and you can kill somebody if your life is in danger, and it was your job and you had to do it. And if you hadn't done it, you'd be dead now." So I said, "Don't beat yourself up over doing something that you had to do. Thank you very much," he said. So there you are. It's not a secret because he told everyone about it in his performance. Otherwise, I couldn't have mentioned it, but I was only referring to what we already knew. So that was that. And I went back the next year. I didn't go up to speak to him for the simple reason that there were lots of people there who hadn't spoken to him before, and I had. And I think I probably did get his autograph. I think we all got his autograph. I have to look in the book. He didn't bend anything for me because he didn't have time to do that. He'd be there for days. So I have been investigating all this business now for 30 years, and I'm convinced that what we would call God is an intelligent energy, which is everything, and there are layers within everything, which are dimensions. Each dimension is a shell, and we're in the lowest dimension, which is 3 dimensions of solid things, but the shell is not absolutely opaque. It's not watertight. Every now and again, either through our own efforts or through nature, it will thin out and we'll see what's on the other side. Plus, it interferes with our lives, deliberately interferes with our lives. So what happens is that the controlling mechanism means that if you're meant to meet somebody in a certain place, every route that you take will send you back there. So if you're driving your car in the opposite direction, there'll be a flood and you'll have to turn left and turn right. Then you'll get delayed and you'll get a phone call and they'll do it. And then eventually you meet up. And without any of those events happening, you'd never have met them. Happens all the time. I tell people about it. They check. It happens to them. Happens to me all the time. That's guidance. Synchronicity, where Baader-Meinhof effect, you hear a word you've never heard before and then you hear it again. And then synchronicity, you'll see a sentence that you're reading, you'll hear it on the radio at the same time. A weird word in a book on the radio all the time. And people, once they're aware of it, they ring you up and tell you their experience, and you can't avoid it. These are the glitches in the matrix telling you that everything is really controlled. It seems chaotic, but it's all planned one way or another. Everything's for a reason. And you can't get away from it, because once you can see it, if you read the world as if it's being arranged, see, Cat's fascinated, mind you, always sits there. He's fascinated by this, listening very closely and carefully, aren't you, Victor? Yes. So basically, I'm now looking for 2 things. When I got to 50, I worked out physically I'm nearer death than alive, unless I live to over 100. And oh my God, I'm going to die. So I thought, well, hold on a minute. There's something wrong with this, because I can't remember before I was born, but as I said in the previous video, I've certainly got lots of abilities and knowledge that I've brought with me from somewhere. I don't know where, but it must be from somewhere. It's either telepathy or I've already got it. So you build up all this wisdom and knowledge, and imagine that if you changed bodies or kept the same body for 400 years, how much you'd know. Doesn't matter how intelligent you are, you would have so much knowledge that it would make you a dictionary or an encyclopedia, whatever you could do or not do with it, you still know it. Even if you couldn't understand much of it, you still have picked up all this information like Doctor Who and all these different lives. So I started thinking it's a bit of a waste. We come here, we do our bit, and then we're gone. It's everything we've got, everything disappears. Okay, our stuff goes to the relatives that we left it to. Our knowledge and our experiences are all vanished instantly, or are they? So my research has taken me in two separate places that are linked. The first place is life after death, because as far as I'm concerned, I can't relax living knowing I'm going to die. Sorry about that. I know what the body's going to do, but I believe that the consciousness is always here. The body is being borrowed by the consciousness, but when the body goes, the consciousness is still there without the body, because lots of people have reported it. And the second thing is to be aware of what's through the dimensions, which Higher Balance does. Now, I've been members with for about 6 or 7 years now, and I'm a voluntary teacher. They've got 2 levels of teachers. They've got the people that have done the course for thousands of pounds where they book up and pay, and everybody else who's done the other courses, who has gone through the same lessons that we've gone through, is said, please can you share this with everybody else, because there aren't enough of us to do it otherwise. Of course I do, because the more people know about it, the better life will be, because we'll all be talking about the same things and not stuck in EastEnders and all crap like that, and worrying about what Nicola Sturgeon's doing today with Alex Salmond, as if anyone gives a damn, except the gossips up in Scotland who've got nothing else to think about except Scottish independence and the fact they're not in the EU, which amazes me, because what's the EU done for them? Not much. Anyway, that aside, the second thing is to become aware of these entities that are the other side. So we'd never be alone, would we? Because if I'm in this room and I could turn a knob which changed the frequency of what you're looking at, you start to see all sorts of other things around, and there'd be, objects and people and things in the room. That's what LSD will do. It will open up your third eye. And the reason that LSD isn't hallucinations is that before it was illegal, the San Francisco students used to go and volunteer. And they go to the university and they'd all give them LSD, walk them around the block and show them all the same things. And they would all see the same animals and monsters and buildings and things that nobody else could see. So basically it was corroborated, it was consistent. There was another dimension behind the one that was there. And many of the people on LSD could see it. And then in Robert Monroe's tests with out-of-body experiences, hundreds of people, because there was no drugs involved, so it's completely harmless. Everybody could do that very happily, go back as often as they wanted to, because it improves with time. And they'd have these out-of-body experiences with 20 or 30 people in beds, in cubicles, and they would meet each other in other rooms and come back and say, oh, I know all about you, and you know all about me, because they had met each other's spirits and learnt all about each other, because their consciousness had just moved to another place and gone in other rooms, and they could corroborate it. They could say what was on the wall, who was there, what the conversations were. So we know we can do it, but it's very difficult to escape physical consciousness. So what we have to do, if you want to, what I'm trying to do, is to know that A, I can escape and meet these other things, and I won't be alone because they're all around me and they can communicate with me. And secondly, is that when the body goes, I will carry on doing that, and then ideally return to another body over and over again till I get bored of that and go somewhere else. So that is my major ambition, because then I can relax and say, well, when I die, I'm just going on holiday, basically going somewhere else. But I know that I am, and that while I'm alive, there is a purpose to it, and there are other dimensions that we can visit and communicate with, which are far more useful, because they don't have all the problems we do, because they're higher up than we are, and they can see us, but we can't usually see them. So those are the ambitions. Have I missed anything? Probably not. No, there's a girlfriend that I told you about before, who I met in '82. She came back, would you like to go out with me? You still single? All right, why not? My God, was she bossy. Anyway, we had a crack at it. Did the best we could, but can't be doing with Bossy. Spent all my money and was telling me what to do the whole time. We did try, still good friends, but you know, you can only make the best of what is available. So we brought it up to the present day now, and I'm now studying again because I can study online. So I'm halfway through another course, which has got about another year and a bit to run. Doing perfectly well on that. So I'm catching up for my missed education in the 80s. That's tell you how he's gone. Having a drink? Yes, have a drink. You can see Victor in my other videos. So that is the story so far. So the third life story I have to do in about 20 years' time, won't I? What happened for the rest of the next 20 years? I don't want to wait till I'm 90. I don't wait too long then. So the question is, do I ever get a girlfriend? Do I get married? Do I get media work? Do I get on the TV? Do I find life after death? Can I communicate with other dimensions? Those are the big ones. Everything else is unseen and unknown. And the politics is separate because I've got my own illusion breaking system where people are stuck in the illusions because the media and the politicians, the propaganda merchants have told them things which I know aren't true because I've done the research. I'll tell you what, I can't get anybody out of it. If they believe it, they are stuck in it, certainly on the internet. It's only friends that can be changed because they trust you and they'll listen. Even then, most of the ones who I would call far left, sort of that sort of mindset, or liberal, you'll never get them out of it because it's a different species. It's like you're talking to the Borg. We are Borg. You will assimilate. Facts mean nothing to them because they're all wired up together. And you have a conversation with one on the internet and they go and somebody else comes on, they say the same things. How do you manage that? You're completing your friend's sentence. Oh, I don't even know them. They all have one mindset. They're just sharing one complete program of sex, not gender, gender, not sex, binary, non-binary, gender fluid. I mean, stick it up your ass. I mean, what a load of absolute nonsense to waste your time in life talking about problems and situations that only exist because there's nothing else interesting in your lives. You have to invent them. I mean, please, come on. Now in certain parts of America or Canada, you can get prosecuted for saying that a man is a man and not a woman because he decides to be a woman on Monday, and if you don't call him a woman, he'll take you to court and prosecute you for hurting their feelings. Now, I've been Jewish all my life, and by the time I was about 11 or 12, you couldn't hurt my feelings. So I'd heard every single insult about Jews that you'll ever hear and been hearing them ever since. But the point is, an insult doesn't work if it's wrong. And everything they say about Jews and Israel and everything else is absolute bollocks. So I think, well, you know, they can say it all, but as it's not true, why should I take it as an insult? You know, none of it relates to me. There's something wrong with them if they read into perfectly harmless, innocent people, bad motives and everything else. Big bloody deal. You know, get over it, because, you know, there's probably weaknesses and other things or peculiarities with most people. If you get to know them well enough, you'll find them and you can drive them mad about it. That's not very nice to do it, but you know, they've probably heard it all before. But the point is, you don't do it, you won't get it back. And if you're getting it from one person, don't fall into the bait, because you'll end up having a fight and you'll all get upset and, you know, stressed out for nothing. So you just say, thank you very much, that insult isn't for me, goodbye, I'm not listening. That's how you take the insults. You don't take them on board because they're only one person's rudeness and there's nothing to do with you, because tell you what, they'll be rude to everybody else, because if they're rude to you, that's that sort of person they are. So don't worry about it. Anyway, I think I've reached all the points I would like to reach. And any questions in the box? Thank you very much. Goodbye.